What's going on, everybody? This is Karan Keep It Real podcast, and today's episode is going to be about different steps in recovery. If you're an addict, or you're a recovered addict, or you want to recover from addiction and feel like you don't know how to do it, this episode will help you to try to some steps to try to help you make it through addiction or recovery from addiction. Oh, I have Matt here. How you doing, Matt? Appreciate that you come to Keep It Real podcast, Karan Keep It Real podcast. And today, I want to talk about a few steps. And one of the steps that we always talk about, we admit that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives has become unmanageable.
Well, thank you for having me, Karan. I really appreciate you having me on this podcast.
No doubt. So, when admitting that we are powerless over our addiction, that's the first step of knowing that you have an issue, that you have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So once you notice that you have a problem, how do you take control over that?
Well, with step one, admitting powerlessness, it's pretty much saying that you can't quit on your own.
Mm-hmm.
That you need something, outside of yourself, something greater than yourself. Um, you know, it's seeing that alcohol or drugs have been controlling your life.
Yes.
And you need to do something different.
Yeah. Because I'll speak on me. With my recovery, I admitted, to myself, like, I have a problem, man, and my life is not going the way I want it to be. So I felt like I have to make a change, and that's when I went into rehab. I wasn't forced. It wasn't by no courts. It wasn't by um, nobody forced me to go get help. So I knew it was unmanageable, but it took God to bring it to my attention. And the second one also talk about we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
Yeah, my path to recovery is very similar. I wasn't forced by the courts or
Mm-hmm.
anything. Um, alcohol and drugs, specifically alcohol and marijuana, was damaging my life pretty much.
Yeah.
And I went to the hospital to see if I could get any help. I stayed there for a day, and then I went to rehab after that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a 29-day rehab. And then,
Yeah.
I've been in sober living ever since.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't want to take that chance to stay away from their family and their friends for 29 days and no communication with the outside world. But you can also talk to your family. They can bring you cigarettes and different things like that. It's not like you in jail. So a lot of people think they're going to hold you and you can't do certain things. And when we came to believe that our power was greater than ourselves, could restore us to sanity, that's God, right?
Yeah,
Or your higher power.
for most people it can be God. For some it can be like a recovery group.
Mm-hmm.
There's some pretty good acronyms for God. If someone's agnostic or atheist, it can be the Great Outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
Good acronym. There was another one.
Pets and stuff, because I know some people, they go to shelters to help animals out and stuff like that. If you a nature person, you hug trees, you put your feet on them, you stay grounded, put your feet on the ground. It's different ways like that.
Yeah, it's Good Orderly Directions, also a really good acronym.
Yeah.
Personally, I believe that there's a higher power to pray to.
Yes.
But people have their own recovery and their own ways of seeing a power greater than themselves.
Right. Then the third one is we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. So if it's not a religion, it do say that we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him.
Yeah,
I said it twice because I want people to understand it's not religion, but you need a God. Basically is what they saying, because it is a God that I believe that that I came to the conclusion to change my life around. I didn't do it on my own. So somebody had to put that in my heart and my mind. That's just for me.
Yeah, like step three, it's we start to see that God wants us to be clean and sober.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing and most important thing about giving our will and our lives over to the care of God. Another thing is to change your old ways, or old ideas, attitudes, and behaviors.
Yes.
Adopting a more optimistic mindset, a
Mm-hmm.
less self-centered mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Helping others, whether it's in the recovery fellowships
Yes.
or community service, things like that, is to get out of ourselves
Yes.
and to see that the world is not just we're not the center of the world, but that God's the center of the world in our lives.
The
And
creator.
yep, and
Yeah.
to live by moral and spiritual principles.
I agree. And also a conscience. Knowing right from wrong. I mean, basically, drugs is not good for you. It's not only bad for your health, it's also financial struggle. I don't care if you is rich, it's bad for your health. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human. This is step 5, by the way. Been an abstract nature of our wrongs. Oh, our exact nature of our wrongs. I'm sorry. So we admitted to God and ourselves and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. What do that mean to you?
Well, step five, it's admitting just like in step one. Like in step one, you're powerless over, your addiction. That's the first part of honesty
Mm-hmm.
of the, in recovery. It's sort of like being honest with yourself, about, your predicament. Step five, it's admitting this to yourself, not just about your addiction, but also the wrongs that came along with your addiction, that was associated with your addiction, and you meant to also to God,
Yeah,
to your higher power,
absolutely.
and I'd say for some people, they think since they admitted to themselves and to God, that's enough, but you really gotta find another person, a sponsor or spiritual advisor,
Mm-hmm.
like a minister or something, a
Yes.
therapist even,
Yes.
that will listen to you, because
Yes.
our secrets keep us sick.
Woo!
And I'd say that
That's a good one.
God works through people.
Yes, he do.
And part of addiction's isolation,
Mm-hmm.
isolation from your higher power and others. So step five helps you to get out of yourself, to get out of that isolation, and to have someone listen and to help you see the errors of your ways, and to ratify, get on that path to rectify your wrongs.
Mm, that's a nice way to put it. Yeah, because you have to admit to God, God already know everything. So admitting to yourself, because you know what you did and what you're doing wrong, and to another human being, your exact nature. That's like coming out and telling people I was wrong. I'm changing. That's basically what I'm doing right now. I'm cleaning up what I used to do. I think all recovery addicts want to do that. And if you're not a recovery addict, if you're just a person that want to do good, um, I feel like when you do the right thing, it feels good. I feel good doing this. And we were in this step 6. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of characters.
Yeah, defects of character, it can also be called shortcomings. If someone's religious, it could be sins or transgressions. Uh, exact nature of wrongs, that could be anger, it could be jealousy, envy,
Mm-hmm.
it could be even lust, even
Mm-hmm.
um, you know overriding natural desires,
Yeah.
and how it affected ourselves and how it affected others.
Mm-hmm.
And our shortcomings, it's we go to God about them, and they are removed one day at a time.
One day at a time. Yes.
Um, they can't always come back if we're not in spiritual condition. We're not keeping our spirituality up. If we're neglecting the program or part of our sobriety, it's sort of like it lays doormat in us.
Right.
And if we don't work on it, those defects can come out.
Yeah, character defects is one of the things, even in recovery, we all suffer from character defects after recovery and during recovery and still in recovery. I'm working on my character defects all the time, believe me. Um, and I ask God to remove them, my character defects, and I'm praying on it every day, and I have manifest, and I believe that He already did. Number seven, we are humbly asking Him to remove our shortcomings. You were just speaking on shortcomings. So, you want to speak on it again, or you already answered that question about shortcomings?
I'd say asking God. It's sort of like developing humbleness in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because you're seeing that you can't change on your own,
Right.
and then you need something greater than yourself. That can remove your shortcomings, and it's a good process, I'd
And
say.
for people who don't know, what is shortcomings?
It's the same thing with character defects or sins, transgressions.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much the things that you've done wrong in your life, and like I said, it could be anger, it could be jealousy, it could be resentment,
Yeah.
it can be lust.
Yes. And even in recovery, it's a lot of people in the fellowship is going through that lust, jealousy, anger, fear,
Yeah.
every single day. Um, I'm trusting God. I give all my problems to God, but a lot of things I do fear. You know what I'm saying? If you love something too much, God will remove it from you to get your attention. It's unfortunately that it seemed that way, but everything was already predicted before we got in this world. God, we are the chosen people that know God has us here for a reason. We didn't meet for no reason, Matt. Um, and we in the same journey. I'm a couple, maybe a few weeks into this before you, but we right now we're 2 years together, so we already know about the shortcomings. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful that we work on it and we're gonna get it right. We made a list of all the persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Have you tried that or any steps or
Yeah. I think it was last year. That's when I went through all the steps with the sponsor, and with step 8, making that list.
mm,
A lot of people, it's recommended that you take the people you were on the resentment list on your 4th step and put that back onto the 8th step.
okay.
And my best suggestion is to work step 8 is if there's no step 9. It's very
Yeah, I
similar.
didn't skip 4, did I?
No.
Okay, okay.
And it's like with step 4, you work it like there's no step 5. So making that list, for me, it helped to see that what I did wrong when it comes to those relationships, past relationships. It was with family members, old friends, ex girlfriends. That's one of the more difficult ones, is the ex girlfriends thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh, of course. Um, Mine was family. Once I forgave myself, first I asked God to forgive me, and I forgave myself. Then I asked God for my family to forgive me, and I asked my family to forgive me. And I want to go back to you said number 4. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. That's deep, you know. And then you said to go with 8, and it do. You know what I mean? I made amends to them all. Whether they accept it or not, and the ones that's passed away.
yeah,
If they're not here.
I went through the same thing. I've had my mother passed away. My
Sorry to hear that.
yeah, thank you. Great grandparents, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that, and one of the ways is part of that amends would be to stay clean and sober.
Mm-hmm.
That's look back and see where they've done good for you,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Yes,
Remember the
the
good
good
times.
memories.
Yeah, remembering the good times.
Yes, and I'm stuck on 4 because it makes so much sense to me. We made a searching, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. That's exactly what this thing is about. Like a lot of people don't want to give the alcohol or drugs up because they don't want to face reality. You know what I mean? That's why I didn't give it up. Um, and I had to do a moral inventory of myself. And it's hard to look at yourself in the mirror and say I'm wrong. I didn't do. I'm failing or no one want to fail in life. They do the wrong thing. So that was really a big step and hard to do as a man. To admit that you was wrong and ask people to forgive you. And you don't know if they're gonna forgive you or say what. A lot of people not gonna forgive you. But if people don't forgive you, how would you handle that? And I kept moving. I kept moving. So number 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible to accept when to do so will injure them or others. What do you think number 9 meant to you?
Well, step nine, it takes a courage, a newfound courage. Because a lot of times in active addiction, we were controlled by fear.
Mm-hmm.
And with step nine, you get that courage to face the people in your past that you have wronged. Uh, it's suggested when you do the amends, direct amends, to focus on your own wrongs, not the other person's.
Right.
Don't bring up the other person's wrongs, but just stick to your
Mm.
own. The last part, talks about when to do so would injure them or others. You really gotta think about, uh, whether it's people you've physically harmed or romantically harmed and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You really got to see, if contacting them would hurt them.
Right.
Because we don't want to bring back our self-centeredness by going to people that we've damaged a lot, and
Yeah.
putting them in a hurtful situation again, making that amends.
Right.
So we really gotta have that discernment. Pray to your higher power. Talk to your sponsor about to help you with discerning which people to do direct amends toward,
Mm-hmm.
and then indirect amends.
Right.
So there's 2 types of amends: direct and indirect.
Right. That's what I was about to say. The indirect means what?
It's one of the ways you can indirectly is just to keep clean and sober.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do the wrong again.
Mm-hmm.
To another person.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to do it to the person on the list and you can't contact them, you have to to tell yourself, don't do that wrong. Do a different person.
Mm-hmm.
That's 2 ways that you can do an indirect amends in the 9th step.
And the direct.
Yeah, directly, that would be meeting up with the person, sometimes even through a phone call or in person, and telling them where you were wrong in the situation in the past relationship, and seeking forgiveness.
And don't fear it, you guys, and be worried about their opinions and how they feel, um, or what they might say. You did your part, and that's all you can do, and that's what God wants you to do. It's, recovery is not what we want to do; it's what God wants us to do. He sees it all; He knows it all. Whether we right or wrong, or whether they right or wrong, that's something that they got to take up with themselves. People done me wrong, and I forgive them, and I move on. But a lot of people they hold stuff. They hold stuff maybe till they die, and just just can't let it go.
Yeah, even non-alcoholics and non-addicts, have character defects and resentments.
Absolutely.
And like for my step 9, most of the people didn't respond. So for me now, currently, my amends are mainly indirect.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just telling myself to be clean and sober,
Yes.
reviewing my past mistakes and transgressions, and going, all right, I'm not going to repeat those same mistakes.
Yes, because we continue to take personal inventory, and we were wrong, promptly admitted. So it's still like it's a cycle what they keep trying to put in these steps.
Yeah, step 10 is pretty much a daily step for 'em.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps us to keep in spiritual condition every day
Mm-hmm.
because we can lapse into, our negative emotions,
Mm-hmm.
negative mindsets or old ways of thinking. And when we do that, we can then, that thing in our mind will go, maybe, I can have a drink. Maybe I can have that one hit.
Yeah.
So step
Yeah.
10,
Yeah.
there's different ways to do it.
Yeah.
There's one way, for some it recommends, just focusing on the defects or mistakes you've done that day. For others, they do the positive negative one.
Right.
See where you did good in that day, where you went wrong in that day, and to see what you can do differently.
Mm-hmm. Um, we sought through prayer, meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out.
Yeah, step 11, it's said that prayer is listening to, or prayer is talking to God.
Yes.
Meditation's
And
listening
it's
to
multiple
God.
times, by the way, they mention in God.
Yeah, God is.
But a lot of times it's not about religion.
No. No, you can be spiritual but not religious.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
There was a good saying. It's that this program works for people who believe in God. It works for people who don't believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
The only people it won't work for is for those who think they are God. And that's a really good saying that.
Yeah, I like that.
People have told me in the program.
Good stuff, Matt.
And it's it's just, it doesn't have to be a big formal prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Just very simple. When you wake up in the morning, you ask God to keep you clean and sober.
Yes.
And then at the end of the night, just pray and give thanks that He has given you a clean and sober day that kept you clean and sober.
Yeah, but I really agree with this. I do pray. I do meditate. I do have a contact with God. I have a relationship with God. Um, Praying for knowledge. Praying for wisdom. Um, um, I know I'm powerless without God. Um, at the same time, when we have obstacles, we question God. When we want to drink or something, or smoke, or to get high or something like that, the steps that we take, like you said, we need somebody that we could talk to. We need a peer coach, a good friend. I have friends and associates too that respect me now. That they do drink and stuff and smoke. I don't do it, and they respect me and my boundaries. Um, and they got a listening ear. All you need is someone to just listen and let you know. Oh, you don't have to do that. And then you got to go to God, like it just said. God will talk to you and give you the knowledge. You just got to really believe in a creator and a higher power, and you will have that connection. And He will send, like you said, He will use people to really help you through what you're going through. 9 times out of 10, depression is real, anxiety is real. So I'm not talking about to the people that have depression and anxiety. I understand that. You got to just believe in yourself and know that it shall pass, right?
Yeah, it's been more and more studies into addiction that there's a co-occurring mental health disorders, whether it's major depression, severe anxiety, bipolar, PTSD.
Yes.
All these things. For me, I've major depression, severe anxiety,
Okay.
PTSD,
Okay.
and I would use alcohol and marijuana to cover those negative feelings. The sadness,
Absolutely.
the fearful, feelings and thoughts, the past, memories. I would drink and get high to try to numb my pain and my negative feelings from that.
Right.
And it's part of recovery is emotional sobriety. if you don't work on your emotional sobriety, you won't be physically sober. You
That's
know,
right.
so part of recovery is accepting how you feel.
Absolutely.
It's like admitting, being honest. That's part of the program. So when you're having a bad day and you're feeling sad, you admit to yourself, hey, I'm not feeling so good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad or I'm very angry. And then you admit it to God, let go and let God. And then
Mm-hmm.
you go to another person, whether it's a trusted friend, a family member, a sponsor, peer coach,
Mm-hmm.
therapist,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual advisor.
Mm-hmm.
Getting in recovery,
Therapist.
you
Yes.
start to see that there are people who care. There's numerous people who care and that will
Mm-hmm.
listen, especially God.
And not only that, by talking to somebody, you might be helping them that afraid to tell people how they really feel. Like you just mentioned, you go through your anxiety and depression and stuff like that. And it is medication out here, you guys, if you need it. And I suffer from abandonment and love and trust issues. Um, the alcohol would numb it, made me thought I felt better.
Yeah.
Told people how I felt like they didn't care. Um, try to buy my way into people's lives, and I found out money is not everything. At the end of the day, um, love from God is everything, and knowing that you love God will put you in a space that money can't buy. Last but not least, having a spiritual awakening. As a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Yes, that spiritual awakening, there can be some misconceptions about it. Some people, when they see the word spiritual awakening, they think it's like a instant, moment. It's like you'll hear a voice or something like that. But it's really that inner feeling that, that your life is getting better, that you have a connection with God.
Mm-hmm.
Just having those positive, feelings,
Yes.
and really acknowledging that you're clean and sober,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you know, uh, you know, and carrying the message. It can be very simple. It can be, just reaching out to someone. It doesn't even have to be about alcohol and drugs. It can
Mm-hmm.
be just being there for someone, like a friend, if
Mm-hmm.
someone needs, to talk to.
Yes.
It could be doing community service, helping
Mm-hmm.
out in your community. And then even doing, what's 12-step work, working with, people who have alcohol and drug problems,
Mm-hmm.
and pointing them to a solution to their alcohol and drug problems, and showing them there is a new way of life. You don't have to, be miserable. You don't
Yeah.
have to keep
Life is
drinking.
gonna be life. You know, bills, social life, love life, thoughts of um, all kind of thoughts. Um, People go through and been through. And don't knock me. I'm not trying to be the spokesperson or anything, but we all have trials and tribulations that we face in this life. But how are we going to handle it? It ain't got to just be with drugs and alcohol. How will we handle this? And I'm glad I have a spiritual awakening, and I'm working on these steps every day. Every day with all these steps that we're talking about, um, I might go back to step one. I might be on step one day, and I might go to step four one day, and I might be on 10, 11, and 12 at the same time. So it's not it's a balance of these steps that you can use through your life. We have a saying that God grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference just for the day. That's what we usually say after group and after meetings and stuff like that. I went to a webinar and I told some guys that, and they said, "We know that." You'd be surprised who been in rehabs, the best of the best, judges, lawyers, doctors. This disease affects families.
Yeah, it's a family disease. It will, it's like for myself, I didn't do alcohol and drugs until I was a teenager, but I always had that alcoholic or addict mindset. I was raised around alcoholics and addicts, so you sort of pick up, um, those negative traits. Then, disease of addiction. For some, they're born with it.
Yes.
I know that I was born with the disease of addiction. I'd get addicted to caffeine, video games, all that stuff as a kid, and
realistically, we could get addicted to anything right now. It could be shopping, it could be work, workaholic. I'm constantly fighting that. I'm constantly fighting a workaholic what I'm doing. But God slowed me down. If you admit that it's a God, He will do the rest for you. You know what I mean? You gotta admit that you're powerless, like the first step say, and you gotta really know in your heart. You gotta admit that it's a God. You're not God. You gotta admit it's somebody stronger, so they can come in and He can send people and stuff like that to help you. Angels or just a human being in flesh. Your cry is not God hear your cry. You just gotta submit to God. I know we scared sometimes to admit to God, but God hears and He know what we need and He know what we want. So I'm at the point right now, to submit all the way. I'm not all the way there, but I'm very close. So Matt, you want to close out with that one? Because I know you was about to say something.
Yeah. Like surrendering to God. For me, I had to let go of my pride. Because I come from a military background, and it's like no surrender. So there's a time to recover. And when you hit that bottom, then you have to wave the white flag and go, okay, I surrender. What can I do? To get sober. What do I have to do to have a new way of life? And that's one of them is surrendering or submitting to God.
Yes. And that's where we at, and I'm glad that we was the voice right now for spiritual awakening for people that want to change and already sober and clean and still trying to find a way out of this situation. Because believe me, because you sober and clean don't mean that your character defects is all the way right. Sometimes it comes out because you numbed it so much off for drugs and alcohol, so you don't even know that you have an issue. And sometimes you think you don't have a problem. You don't think you need medication. You think you don't need a therapist. You think you got this because I'm clean and sober. But believe me, you one away. So take one day at a time, you guys. If you want to get clean and sober, it's a 188 number. 1-800 or is it 1-800 or 188?
1-800.
Yeah, 1-800-241-4141, and they will assist you. Whoever that family members or anybody that you love that need help, they will pay for it for 29 days. So if you need help and you want to surrender to God and you want to make a change, and because it's time. I mean, it's taking money, is killing people. It's not the same. You gotta face life on life terms. You can't just stay numbed up. You gotta give it up or want the best for yourself and see the real you. Face the real you and understand who you really are. So I thank you guys. I thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Kira.
Thank you so much for coming to support me on Quran Keep It Real podcast. Subjects like this that we need to wake up the world and let people know that this disease is killing people that we really love. You seeing different types of people that we really love is not the same. And you might not even know the people that you really love anymore because of this disease. So please like, comment, share, and watch it over and over just to learn these steps and make a change. I love you guys. Keep your head up, and God bless you. Till we meet again. Keep It Real podcast. Peace.